What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected stars walks into what should have been a harmless daytime interview, only to be ambushed on live television by a host dead set on creating controversy? What you're about to hear is the explosive clash that sent Matt Damon storming off the View set, while Joy Behar scrambled to justify her own behavior in front of a stunned audience. And trust me, this isn't your average celebrity interview meltdown. This is a front-row look at how one person's agenda can shatter an entire show's credibility in minutes. But stay with me, because it gets even more intense from here. Matt Damon agreed to appear on The View to promote his new environmental documentary, a personal passion project he had spent 3 years shaping from the ground up. As he settled into the iconic curved desk, adjusting his mic like the seasoned guest he is, he expected the usual morning show mix. Friendly questions about his family, his latest work, maybe a sprinkle of politics. Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Alyssa Farah Griffin greeted him warmly, clearly excited to hear about the documentary. But Joy Behar, her energy was different, very different, and this is where things took a turn. From the moment cameras started rolling, Joy's posture was sharp, almost hunting. She didn't even wait for the introductions to finish before pouncing. "So, Matt," she began with a dripping, sugary tone, "you talk a lot about saving the planet, yet you own several massive homes with carbon footprints bigger than most neighborhoods. Isn't that, well, hypocritical?" Matt blinked, caught off guard, not by the criticism itself, but by the hostility packed into the very first question. The other hosts shifted awkwardly, clearly stunned that Joy had gone straight for the jugular. Still, Matt kept his composure. "Well, Joy," he said calmly, "that's a fair question people often ask. I've invested in renewable energy across all my properties, and the documentary actually addresses this exact issue. We can't let perfect be the enemy of progress." But Matt's calm didn't slow Joy down. In fact, it poured gasoline on the fire. Joy leaned in even further, her tone sharpening like a blade. "That sounds like Hollywood spin," she snapped. "You jet around the world on private planes lecturing average people about their carbon emissions. Meanwhile, we're told to bike to work and skip burgers. How do you sleep at night living like royalty while preaching sacrifice?" Whoopi tried to intervene, sensing the segment spiraling fast. "Joy, maybe we should let Matt talk about his documentary," she offered. But Joy wasn't budging. She dismissed Whoopi with a wave, refusing to give up control. "No, this is exactly what needs to be said," she insisted, raising her voice. "I'm tired of celebrities preaching to people while making zero real sacrifices. Matt, you made over $20 million last year. How many solar panels for struggling families could that money have covered instead of funding another vanity project?" Matt's jaw tightened, but he stayed professional. "Joy, I get the frustration, and many people feel the same. But pushing this kind of divisive narrative is exactly what stops real progress. The documentary highlights real families, people from all backgrounds, who are making changes that actually matter." That word, divisive, was all Joy needed to explode. "Divisive rhetoric?" she barked back, laughing sharply. "That's rich coming from someone who supports politicians who have blocked environmental laws for years. You can't claim to care about the planet while backing leaders funded by the oil industry." Sarah Haynes stepped in, clearly uncomfortable. "Maybe we can talk about some of the specific solutions in the documentary," she suggested. But Joy's glare shut her down instantly, and what happened next sent the entire studio into shock. Sarah tried once more to step in, her voice calm but strained. "I think our viewers deserve honesty, not tension," she began, but Joy cut her off sharply. Joy leaned forward, eyes locked on Matt like a prosecutor closing in on a confession. "No, Sarah, they deserve straight answers. Matt, yes or no? Do you believe your personal lifestyle actually matches the environmental message you're pushing?" Matt inhaled deeply, fighting to maintain his calm even as Joy's accusations became more pointed. "Joy," he said evenly, "you're boiling down a global crisis into a cheap gotcha moment. That's not how change happens. Yes, I live a privileged life. And yes, I try to use that privilege in ways that help, not harm. My documentary highlights everyday people making extraordinary progress. That's the real story here. But Joy wasn't listening. She was hunting for a soundbite, and she thought she'd found one. There it is, Joy announced triumphantly, jabbing her finger at him. You admit you're privileged, but you still won't admit that with privilege comes real responsibility. Instead, you make documentaries that make you feel better about yourself. That's not activism, Matt. That's self-congratulation. The audience shifted uncomfortably, low murmurs rising through the studio. Alyssa attempted to pivot the conversation back to the film's production, but Joy sliced through her words before she could finish. I'm not done, Joy snapped, her tone now carrying real anger. Matt, look straight into that camera and explain why anyone should listen to environmental advice from someone who burns more fossil fuel in a month than most people do in a year. And that was the breaking point. For the first time, Matt's professional facade cracked. His eyes hardened as he turned fully toward Joy. You know what, Joy? He said, voice taut with frustration. I came here in good faith to talk about serious issues affecting real families, real communities. Instead, you've turned this into a personal attack. This isn't journalism. It's theater. Joy's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. This was the reaction she'd been pushing for. Theater? She shot back. That's quite a statement coming from an actor. Tell me, Matt, is your environmental activism just another role you're playing to look good on camera? The question hung in the air, poisonous and heavy. Matt's expression darkened from irritation to outright anger. Around him, the other hosts looked horrified. Whoopi even covered her face, as if she couldn't bear to watch where this was going. That is completely out of line, Matt said, his voice low and razor-sharp. I've worked on these issues for over 15 years, long before it became trendy in Hollywood. You aren't questioning my politics. You're questioning my sincerity. And that is not only unprofessional, it's insulting. But Joy, fueled by the tension she had created, only doubled down. Insulting? She echoed with a smirk. What's insulting is watching wealthy celebrities lecture regular families about energy use while living in giant mansions. What's insulting is pretending you're saving the planet while your bank account grows from the same industries destroying it. That's the real charade here. Before Matt could respond, Whoopi finally snapped, slamming her hand on the table. That's enough, she said sharply. Joy, stop. But what came next would push everything over the edge. The interview was supposed to highlight Matt's documentary, his work, his research, his dedication, not spiral into a personal grudge match. But Joy whipped around toward Whoopi with a sudden burst of hostility. A personal vendetta? Really, Whoopi? Since when is holding powerful people accountable considered a vendetta? This is exactly why public figures get away with anything they want, because shows like this tiptoe around them with softballs and polite smiles. Before Whoopi could respond, Matt pushed his chair back and rose to his feet. The scraping noise echoed sharply across the silent studio, snapping everyone's attention toward him. You want to talk about consequences, Joy? He said, his voice firm and controlled. Fine. Let's talk about the consequences of the toxic, cynical rhetoric you're spouting right now. Oh, please, Joy scoffed, rolling her eyes with theatrical disdain. Spare me the moral outrage. Save it for your next emotional movie monologue. You're not a victim here, Matt. You're just a privileged white man who can't handle being held accountable for his inconsistencies. The entire room froze. That comment hit Matt like a slap. His face drained of color, and for a long, painful moment, no one, hosts, crew, or audience, made a sound. Everyone waited to see if he'd take the bait or walk away. Are you serious right now? Matt asked, his voice low and trembling with restrained anger. You're really going to drag race into this? You're going to twist a conversation about environmental action into some shallow identity politics trap? That's what we're doing now. Joy's smile sharpened, sensing she had struck another nerve. I'm just stating the obvious, she said smoothly. When people like you, people with money, influence, and every opportunity in the world, get criticized, suddenly it's unfair and too personal. But when regular people are judged, that's just life, right? Sarah looked like she wanted to vanish into her chair entirely, while Alyssa frantically gestured toward the producers off camera. The audience had begun to shift and murmur, some even standing up to leave as the tension thickened. Matt shook his head slowly, eyes filled with disbelief. "You're unbelievable, Joy. You're twisting this entire interview into something it's not because you can't defend your own behavior. You invited me here under the impression we'd actually discuss the documentary, solutions, science, real families taking action. But you never wanted that conversation. You wanted a spectacle." For the first time, Joy's mask cracked, just for a moment. The righteous expression slipped, revealing sharper frustration beneath. "False pretenses?" she repeated. "Matt, the only thing false here is your entire public persona. You try to present yourself as a thoughtful, socially conscious actor. But the second someone asks a tough question, you crumble like a house of cards." "Tough questions." Matt's voice rose, something he had avoided until now. "Joy, you haven't asked a single question about policy, climate science, or actual solutions. All you've done is hurl personal attacks and chase sound bites. That's not journalism, that's bullying." The word bullying hit Joy like a spark in a powder keg. Her face flushed crimson. "Bullying?" she repeated, incredulous. "Did you seriously just call me a bully? I've been doing this job longer than you've been making anything remotely meaningful. I've interviewed presidents, world leaders, Nobel Prize winners. Then maybe..." Matt shot back, his patience finally gone. "You should start acting like it, because right now you're behaving like a shock jock desperate for viral attention. Not a journalist." Whoopi stepped in again, voice tight with urgency. "Everyone needs to take a breath. We're way off track. Let's..." But Joy wasn't hearing any of it anymore. She had crossed a line and seemed determined to go further. "No, Whoopi, I'm not backing down. I want Matt to explain how asking legitimate questions about his credibility is suddenly bullying. I want to hear why he thinks being famous makes him immune to criticism." Matt turned away from Joy entirely and faced the cameras head-on. "I came here to talk about a documentary highlighting real families making real environmental strides in their communities. Instead, I've been subjected to nonstop personal attacks that have nothing to do with climate issues and everything to do with manufacturing controversy for ratings." Joy wasn't ready to let him take control of the narrative. She cut in again, her tone dripping with mockery. "Oh, look at that. Playing the victim again. Matt, you're sitting." But what happened in the next moment would flip the entire studio upside down. "On a platform that reaches millions of people," Joy continued sharply, "using it to promote your personal projects while pretending you're some moral authority. If you can't handle a few questions, maybe you shouldn't even be here." Matt suddenly stopped moving. His voice, when he spoke again, was calm, unnervingly calm. "You know what, Joy? You're right. Maybe I shouldn't be here. In fact..." He unclipped his microphone pack with deliberate precision. "I know I shouldn't." The other hosts froze, eyes widening. The audience went completely still, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Something that would replay across news networks for days. "Matt, wait," Sarah pleaded softly, rising partway from her chair. "Please don't walk out like this." But Joy couldn't resist another dig. Her voice sliced through the tension. "That's right, Matt. Run. Run away when the questions get tough. Very environmentally friendly of you. Just wasting everyone's time." That was the strike that shattered Matt's restraint. He stopped mid-motion, turned back toward Joy, and stared at her with an intensity that made the entire room hold its breath. "You want to talk about wasting time?" he said quietly, his voice vibrating with controlled fury. "Let's talk about how you've spent the last 15 minutes ripping apart someone who's actually trying to help, just to stir up drama instead of having a productive conversation. Let's talk about how you've turned what should have been an educational discussion into a personal demolition project." But instead of backing down, Joy leaned in, like she was feeding off the chaos she created. "Oh, spare me the performance," she snapped. "You're not an environmental savior, Matt. You're a celebrity who latched onto a cause because it makes you feel important. And you," Matt shot back, "are a talk show host who forgot that your job is supposed to be to inform, not attack." He took a step closer, voice rising. Do you know what I plan to talk about today? A family in Ohio who reduced their energy use by 70% using community-taught methods. A teacher in Detroit who created a school garden that's feeding hundreds of kids. Real people doing real things that could inspire your viewers. Joy rolled her eyes dramatically. More Hollywood feel-good stories. Exactly what I mean. You cherry-pick these cute examples while ignoring the bigger picture. The bigger picture? Matt repeated, incredulous. Joy, you haven't asked me a single question about actual environmental policy. Not one. Nothing about renewable energy programs, nothing about scientific data, nothing about solutions. You're not trying to inform your viewers. You're trying to score political points by tearing me down. Whoopi, desperate to regain control, raised her hands. Okay, we need to reset. Matt, maybe we can. But Joy cut her off, voice sharp with anger. No, Whoopi. Stop protecting him. If Matt really cared, he'd be pushing for systemic change instead of making vanity documentaries that play well at film festivals. Matt let out a short, bitter laugh. Systemic change? Joy, do you even know what systemic change looks like? It looks like the renewable energy legislation I've spent the past 3 years lobbying for in Washington. It looks like the microgrant initiative I helped create that's already funded over 200 community sustainability projects. But you didn't bother to research any of that before dragging me onto your show. Did you? For the first time, Joy's confidence flickered. Just briefly. But instead of stepping back, she doubled down hard. Anyone can throw money at a problem, Matt. That doesn't make you an expert. And anyone, Matt fired back immediately, can throw out cheap gotcha questions and stir controversy. That doesn't make you a journalist. The temperature in the room shifted. Every set of eyes, hosts, crew, audience were locked on them. You've had 30 minutes of access to someone who's spent years working on these issues, Matt continued. And you chose to use that time to grandstand, to attack, to insult. That isn't just unprofessional, it's irresponsible. Joy's face was now flushed scarlet, her voice straining with fury. Don't you dare lecture me about responsibility, you hypocritical movie star. You live in a bubble of wealth and comfort. And now you have the nerve to come on my show and act like you're some kind of environmental hero. Matt blinked. Your show? He repeated, stunned. And what happened next pushed the conflict somewhere no one expected. Shocking even the crew watching from behind the cameras, Matt leaned forward, fixing his eyes on Joy with a calmness that cut deeper than any raised voice ever could. Joy, this isn't your show, he said quietly. This is The View. And unless something has changed that I'm not aware of, you're one of several hosts, not the sole voice in the room. He paused, letting the words sink in. But the way you've handled this entire interview, you've acted like the only opinion that matters is your own. You've talked over your co-hosts, dismissed every attempt at actual discussion, and turned what should have been a meaningful conversation into a one-woman performance of personal jabs. The other hosts were visibly uncomfortable. Sarah Haynes kept staring at her hands as if wishing she could vanish. Alyssa Farah Griffin sat stiffly, eyes darting toward the cameras like she was silently pleading for a commercial break. Even Whoopi, usually the steady anchor, seemed unsure how to reel the moment back under control. Yet Joy, either unaware or uncaring, powered forward like she'd already decided the script. I'm the only one here asking tough questions, she snapped. These other ladies just want to coddle you like you're Hollywood royalty. I'm not impressed by fame. Hard questions, Matt repeated with disbelief. Joy, you haven't asked a single hard question. You've made accusations. You've taken personal shots. You've tried to drag this interview into controversy for the sake of it. But you haven't asked anything that would help viewers think critically about environmental challenges, or inspire them to do something about it. Joy shot to her feet as if she needed the height to regain control. You know what, Matt? I think the audience finally sees the real you. Fame has clearly gone to your head. You're just another privileged celebrity who can't handle being challenged. He looked at her for a long moment, then spoke in a low, steady voice that carried more power than any shout. You're right about one thing, Joy. The viewers can see who someone really is today. He removed his microphone slowly, placing it on the table with deliberate care. They see someone who invited a guest under false pretenses, someone who chose personal attacks over honest dialogue, someone more interested in manufacturing viral drama than giving people real information about an issue that actually matters. Joy froze, her face blank, her mouth opening and closing without a single coherent reply. The cameras were merciless. Matt turned to the other co-hosts, offering them a respectful nod. Whoopi, Sarah, Alyssa, I'm sorry you had to sit through this. I respect what this show usually stands for. And I'm sorry today got off track. To everyone watching who wants to learn what they can actually do about climate change, our documentary premieres next month across multiple platforms. The information is there for anyone who genuinely wants a constructive conversation. He began walking off the set, but before he reached the exit, Joy threw out one last desperate attempt to regain the narrative. That's right, Matt. Run away the minute someone holds you accountable. Matt stopped, turned, and delivered the final blow. Joy, accountability would mean you taking responsibility for turning an educational moment into a personal attack session. Accountability would mean explaining to your viewers why you chose controversy over meaningful content. His voice softened, but his words hit harder. But I have a feeling self-reflection isn't exactly your strong suit. With that, Matt Damon walked off the View stage, leaving Joy standing alone as the studio sat in stunned, heavy silence. The cameras kept rolling long enough to catch the realization spread across her face. Her attempt to create a viral takedown had spectacularly backfired. Instead of humiliating Matt, she had exposed herself, petty, unprofessional, and completely outmatched. So what do you think? Was Joy Behar totally out of line? Or do you believe celebrities should face this kind of aggressive questioning? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes moments the mainstream media would rather you never see.